Hey everybody, welcome to the Nurses Journal. I'm your host, Melissa Cortez. I was a critical care nurse. Now I say I'm a recovering ICU nurse, and I am the resilient nurse. I took all the tools and training that I could get from mindfulness and meditation and was able to take back my life and my career. So I love the Nurses Journal because it's a platform where we can really talk and be open and honest. So I wanted to introduce you guys to Miss Fallon Lopez. She is a nurse as well. Lots of experience. She's from Houston, Texas. You know, we are a Texas-based company, so we're like soul sisters, and she's also a Latino nurse entrepreneur. So we're really excited to have her on the show today. And she is now a wellness coach. So we'll get into her mind and figure out, what made her become a coach and her journey. So, all right, Miss Fallon, let's hear it. Why did you become a nurse in the first place?
Oh, well, thank you, Melissa, for having me on. First of all, let me say that she's amazing, y'all. So, my nursing journey, y'all. So, like she said, I grew up in Houston, Texas. The area of town that I live in is not the greatest. I grew up hood adjacent, as I like to say. I was near the hood, but
I
in
love that.
the good area, like that one street. Definitely a lot of people around me were, the hoodish things that they would do would be like not go to college, not have a career, not have a future, things like that. And my parents, they're Hispanic. I have a military dad, and my mom is a religious leader in the church, very religious. And so they just knew I had a strong career ahead of me. They told me to be a nurse. That's literally what my dad told me. I was like, Dad, I want to be a singer. I want to be a writer. I wanted to be on camera, doing my songs and dancing. Literally, that's what I was doing at 5. And they convinced me, no, daughter, no, mija, you need to be a nurse. And I was like, okay, well, nurses make money. Nurses will always have a job. And so I stuck with it. And honestly, it was just a way for me to stay out of trouble and not get pregnant, because I did have a boyfriend at that time and they were worried about me. That's the worst thing that could happen to you if you're Latina. You get pregnant before you're married and then they shun you from the church and things like that. Yeah, definitely. So that's how it started. I got into nursing just, as a way to stay out of trouble. And I started taking my A&P classes and fell in love with just learning about the body, y'all. Like I would literally stay up just reading and reading. And I did really well in my classes, which I was totally surprised because I never really was like an A student, even a B student. I just see my way on through. And so got into it, really fell in love with it, but I had no clue what I was getting into.
Like, do we ever?
So I was the first person in my family to do any type of healthcare related activities, anything type of job. So I had nobody to talk to. I had no reference point. I just dove in head first. I was like, I want to help people. Nursing is the most trusted profession. There's a reason why people just associate nurses with just always giving, it because that's literally what we do. So when I got into nursing, that's what I thought I had to do. I had to help everyone else, help everybody. But meanwhile, my mental health was struggling. I was like emotionally depleted. I was making bad choices in my nutrition. I wasn't taking care of my, my physical body as well as my mental health. And I was struggling in nursing school. I was like extremely overweight and depressed and making horrible decisions. Yes, girl.
I remember nursing school being like Red Bull, Adderall, pray that we hope pass this test. I can remember one time, oh my God, my parents are gonna kill me. I got drunk Thursday night and I had a Friday AM chemistry. And I used to go in there, and me and my friend Rob, he was a nursing student as well. And we would sit there and we would get our test back and it would be like 74. And him and I would both cry, right? Because you like need a 70 to get into the nursing program, right? Like, we're never going to get in. And
or 75.
Yeah, 75 or something. We got like a 74. We're like, oh my God. And so the teacher, he was so funny. He was like this Indian man. And he'd come around and he'd be like, oh, stop crying. I give you a B. And he'd cross it out and give me like an 80. And I'd be like, I love you. Thank you so much.
Oh my God. The struggle is real. Like, it's so real. And then you're like, like preparing to help others. Meanwhile, you're not even taking care of yourself. Like I was just mind
Oh,
blown at how bad I was just like struggling to just be this person, be this helper, be this person that was just gonna like heal the world. And meanwhile, I was like struggling in my own health. So that set me up really for burnout. I
yeah.
had no
Already,
frame
we
of
come out of school burnt out.
you start off burnt out. So I can't imagine what the new grads are dealing with now. So like, and
Plus,
then I
they're
was a
crazy for signing up in a pandemic. Like, they
girl,
should be
bonus
pampered.
points. Seriously, bonus points. So, but that was my RN transition. I started off as an LVN at first,
Okay.
so I did LVN to BSN. So, yeah, definitely just, and then got into the hospital, of course, because as an RN BSN, that's where you can, learn the most. So working in the hospital, I worked in IMU critical care. I'm a critical care nurse by trade or whatever. And then, but even before COVID hit, I was burnt out. I was like 5 years in and I was like burnt out. I was like, something needs to change. I hate seeing these patients come here. So, I mean, girl, my story is just a little bit long. It's still
No, keep going.
unfolding.
This is great. This is what
Still unfolding for sure.
good. Yeah.
So the wellness part came about because I was burnt out. I was like, I keep seeing the same patients, the same diabetic patients, the same asthma patients, COPD patients. I wanted to say COVID. Of course, that's the hot new thing. But back in the day,
Those
before
COPD
COVID,
years. Yep.
yeah, it was COPD smokers, diabetes patients, what else? Heart failure patients, renal patients. Oh, kidney patients were the worst. And
They're crazy, aren't they? And if you have renal disease, I'm not trying to say that you're nuts. Like, literally, it's because the disease process. Like, they are the kindest people, and then you get these clots in their kidneys, and their potassium's through the roof. I would be nuts too.
yeah, exactly. So it's dealing with all of that in this area and just like really not taking care of myself mentally. I thought I was doing all the right things. I was running 5 miles a day. I was lifting
Really?
weights. I was strict on my diet, but I was trying to cope. I was drinking a lot. I was even substance abuse,
Wow. Yeah.
like smoking all the time. Like, let's just be real. I'm gonna be real
Mhm.
here, Melissa.
Yeah.
I
Well,
was
that's where
trying to be.
people's journey starts. I think if we don't talk about it and we don't talk about where we were at one point, how are we supposed to get these nurses and, to get to where we envision nursing to be, as the example?
Yeah, I mean, it was just my way of dealing with the stress. And then, of course, my own personal trauma. Like I told you, I was depressed. I was already like making bad choices in relationships and just always looking for somebody else to fulfill me, to make me happy. And I thought nursing was going to do that. I thought a relationship, I thought a new career. I always thought something was going to make me happier when really I needed to be happy with myself. And until I realized that, like nothing could really happen for me. There was no clarity. There was no purpose. I was just like lost until I started looking up programs. I was like, I don't really think I want to do NP. I'm not ready for that commitment, but I like fitness. I like eating healthy. So I found personal training. I got a personal trainer certification. Then I got a wellness coach certification. And all I was doing this was a way for me to keep patients out of the hospital. And
Yeah.
it's like, okay, I don't want anybody to come here. This place is horrible. This was my way out of nursing, honestly, until COVID hit. COVID hit, and I was working in the ICU, the COVID ICU, with all the nurses, and they would stay there for 12 hours with their masks, barely breathing, barely having a lunch, barely peeing, barely like even advocating for their patients. They were so exhausted, they wouldn't even use the language line to
Nope.
talk to their patients. They were just like, at this point, I'm just trying to get out at 7:45. If I can get out at 7:45. The powerlessness that I saw on those nurses, like just catapulted me into action. I was like, I need to do something. I don't know what I'm doing here, but I need to do something. And it
Oh,
just created a pivot in my whole business. I started in 2019 thinking I was going to help patients stay out of the hospital. In reality, I felt like it was a God moment for me right then when I was in the trenches, in the nitty
you're like,
gritty.
this is my demographic. These are the people I have to save.
And it's hard because
It
I'm
is
like,
hard because we don't even know we need the help.
we don't
So
want it.
it's like they don't want it. We don't want it. We're like, I'm good. I'm good. It's always been this way. It's always been
I'm
like this. So I guess like what was your moment, or did you have a moment, or was like a slow process where you realized like I need to do something different?
So it started right when I kept having like just it started when I was working at IMU, and I was just so I felt very powerlessness, and that's literally one of the symptoms of moral injury, moral distress is having this powerlessness. And the research that I've been doing, it's, nurses confuse it with just part of the job, because burnout, it just, or the injury just feels like you're fatigued, you're tired, you can't make any decisions, you're just powerlessness.
Like
That's
at
really,
home, I would get home and like someone would ask me a question and I'd be like, I have no, like I would go to places like McDonald's and know that, not that I eat there very often, but or Chick-fil-A, and not look at the website and be like, or look at the menu and be like, I have no idea. Like I'd never been there before. Like,
yeah,
it was, like,
your brain
moments
is
like
just
that. Your brain was just, like, and I'd get home and I'd have no energy for my kids. I'd have no energy to do anything for myself, and it was like I'd fall asleep and, like, wake up the next morning and I would be driving to work and be like, "I cannot wait to get in this car and go home."
wow. It's so sad what like we
And
just
everybody else felt the same way. So you're like, "Oh, well, that's
it's
just the way it
normal.
is."
It's part of the job. Yeah. It was just too many episodes of where it just was all piling up on top of me. I couldn't make decisions with my patient care. Like I'd
Mm,
literally be like looking at them knowing like what I could do, but nothing would get done. And I would call the doctor, I would get people, my charge nurse, I would get everything, and I'm like, this needs to happen. But nothing happens. And the patient, like I would lose patients, they would die. And I would like feel like so utterly like it's my fault. So it was like this emotional intelligence, like understanding my boundaries, like I really didn't have those concepts to help me stay grounded. So
yeah.
anything, like if I lost a patient, if I got into it with the coworker, with the doctor, would throw me off. And I would be like so like
Off
just
the deep end. You were, like, off the deep end like that, and it was like the rest of your day, you couldn't even get back into control.
Exactly. And so at that point, I was like, I need to leave nursing. I need to find another way out. I like activity. I like eating healthy. I like these different type of things. Like maybe I can make this into something. I
Yeah.
didn't know how. I had no clue about wellness coaching. I was like, but I like to teach. I like to educate. I like to talk to people. I like that one-on-one with my patients. That's why I could never really be in ICU. So kudos to you, honey, for doing that, because like that was my thing, and I had to realize, that was me. Like I couldn't just change it, because there's also this culture like, oh, you need to toughen up, you need to just deal with it, you can't be soft, you can't be, but I was like,
That's who I am. Yeah.
in the process I was like trying to become someone else. In reality, like, I had to be honest with myself. And so saying all that to say, like, that the reason why I pivoted was I just was so tired of feeling powerless. I was like, this I can't make, I don't, I'm just the nurse. I was tired of that. I was definitely tired of that.
And then on your journey, as you kind of went through, like my biggest thing is how do I keep nurses from leaving the bedside? Nurses that, good nurses like you and I, because we're good nurses. But, how do we keep us there? And I think maybe you can speak to this as a coach and like your own personal journey, but once you learn boundaries,
Mm,
then you understand like how to empower yourself, that it doesn't matter what's going on in the unit or what you can or cannot change at anymore, because all you are controlled of is how you respond, and that empowers us. It takes that powerlessness away and say, okay, this is the system. It is not me. And I think like maybe touch on like what you as a wellness coach and as your experience, like how you found that I know that you left the bedside and then came back, right? To
yes,
come back for a period. So kind
yes,
of talk about how like after this journey you're like, okay, now what's my experience like when I found my power?
yes, exactly. I love Yeah, because I ended off on like I had to get out of the hospital and this was my way out. But once I started formulating this plan to, move things around and create my business, it just I was still drawn to nursing. I still had a heart for nursing. And that was something that I could not change. Like there's a reason why I got into it. Yes, I'm at my weakest. I am like burnt out. I am in distress. I'm injured. I don't know if I'll ever get out of this, but like at my core, I am a nurse at heart. Like I'm always going to be a nurse. And so in this process of, finding my wellness, becoming a coach, I actually had to like start putting into practice what I preach,
Mm-hmm.
putting myself first. And I learned about those boundaries. And I just had to be honest about, like, hey, I didn't have these tools in my toolbox. And I feel like I'm going to take it a step further. As a Latina, this was not the normal thinking for me. None of this was given to me, taught to me.
No.
This form of thinking of like, you need to take care of your mental health. What are things, what are things that are important to you? What is your values? What are, things like that. It
We're
was
supposed to just serve everyone around us, and that's very true in the Latina culture.
it's very like a community, like a tribe mentality, which is what makes us strong. But in the end, like, how can you contribute to a bigger picture if you don't know how you can contribute, if that makes sense?
Right.
Like, how am I going to, either you just get swept up into this nursing life or you just, you are in addition to it. And
Right.
that's what I wanted to be like. And I didn't realize that's the mindset that I was missing. I am an addition to, you know, being in the healthcare world. And I was just getting swept away in it. And I felt like so overwhelmingly like nothing. And I feel like a lot of nurses feel that way. And that's why we're losing a lot of nurses, especially after COVID. Like, you see all these patients on these ventilators. They can't be with their, family, and they don't speak the same language, or there's a disconnect, and you feel so like powerless to do anything. And it's like nurses know what to do. We know, okay, but do I have enough time? Is anybody going to listen to me? But I got to go home. Like, so you're torn. And it's very unfortunate that we have to feel this way, but things need to change. And I feel like in order for us to make those changes, and you were on that post the other day, the ANA was like, what do y'all want to change?
Yeah.
More, we need more than just breathing and yoga. Yes, we do. Those are in addition to those practices are
Yeah.
important as well.
And that guy was kind of like, hey, that's not what we need. Mindfulness isn't going to fix anything. And I was like, no, it's not going to fix the system failures, but what are you going to do till the system gets fixed? Because I don't see none of y'all doing nothing except getting on here complaining and then presenting these brilliant ideas. And then because we're nurses, we have no voice at the table. So,
See,
like, that's the part that has to change. And I think it really comes from rebranding the idea of what a nurse is.
and how do we rebrand? How do we even know? Sometimes when you're burnt out, when you're just like fatigued and you're just like broken, which a lot of us have maybe come to this point. How do you rebrand? How do you even remember what a nurse is? You have to go back to what your original why was. Why did you get into it? Maybe
Why?
you need to step away. Maybe you need to back up. Right now, I'm an infusion nurse. I did have to take off. I picked up a clinic job, a more Monday through Friday, work environment, and I'm starting again. I didn't leave completely. I may one day go back to bedside. I loved being a nurse, and like being with my patients was, I loved it. I loved being a nurse.
Mm-hmm.
But I had to be honest with myself, like, was my care being affected by how I was? Or, am I being affected?
Yeah.
And for me, instead of just leaving completely, I had to just be honest with myself. Where am I at? What do I need to do for myself right now in order to regain stability within myself, whatever that looks like? And so that was taking a clinic job for right now. And I love it. And I'm still practicing as a nurse. I'm still a nurse, you
Yes.
know? So, yeah, I mean, in order for us to really, I feel like make changes, we have to make changes within ourselves first.
Yeah.
And that's what wellness and that's what this coaching is all about. Because I'm like, how am I contributing? How am I making my impact? Because I see nurses as nurse wellness leaders. That's the name of
Yes.
the program. We're the Nurse Wellness Initiative. That's So, and I'll talk about that more. But in order
Yeah,
to be those
go ahead and talk about like your program and kind of what you developed and how it's unique and yeah, just tell us a little bit about the Nurse Wellness Initiative.
Yeah, I just feel like in order to be those leaders, we have to lead by example. And what better way than for the nurses to do and to be that? Because we're the ones that, we come behind the doctor and we explain it to the patient and we build that rapport and we're with them. So who better to lead by example than the nurses? If we do the work within us first, whether that be mindset, those are things that I, cover in my the Nurse Wellness Initiative mindset, creating that wellness mindset, um, self-care routines, creating healthier self-care routines, spiritual growth, because I definitely feel like connecting to your faith, that bigger picture is going to help ground you and connect you to your why. So spiritual growth, self-care, mindset, and of course, what are you doing for your physical body? So we cover nutrition. What are different ways that nurses, we need help too in that area
Yeah,
sometimes.
we do. And sometimes it's just coaching, like you're saying. It's like, oh, I know that. I know that. And saying, like, it's
A reminder.
okay. It's okay that you know it and you're not using it. I think, like, that's why nurse coaches are so important because you could go to a fitness person and they're like, well, you're a nurse. You know all this. Why aren't you using it? It's very easy for someone not in this situation
Condescending much.
to say, well, you know it. Why aren't you using the technique? Well, because it's freaking hard. Like, you have no idea the moral distress that we face every day. And it's not from patients dying. People think, oh, well, you have a couple of patients die. It's like the fact that, like, you might go in and have a conversation with the family. Like, I just saw this post on, like, the Nurse Meme official or whatever. And it was like, you have a conversation with the family, and then the doctor comes in and is like, oh, let's trach them. And you just got them to, like, be palliative care. And then they come in and ruin everything. It's like that moral distress that you put yourself through for being empathetic and emotional in that moment. And then they come in and just take it all away like that. And you're like, oh my God. So it's moments like that, moments with pharmacy, interaction with other, employees and people. And it's so much that no one can understand unless they're a nurse. And I think as a nurse coach, you're able to be like, yeah, it's okay, and hold space for those people in those moments that they're not achieving what they know they're capable of.
Yeah, I mean, two heads are better than one. And I feel like the coaching program, the Nurse Wellness Initiative, it's just a collaboration effect. Like, I have these tiers, these four or five tiers, the spiritual growth, the wellness mindset, self-care routines, nutrition, and movement. These five tiers, they're here as a framework. I'm here as your supporter. I'm here as your cheerleader. I'm here as your consultant. I'm here as your coach. We're going to collaborate together and we're going to build your plan. You know these things. You've been implementing them for others, but how about for yourself for a change? And so that's where the name of my business comes, Are You Well? Because first, the R comes from my uncle. His first name started with an R, and he was struggling with diabetes, and he lost his battle to diabetes. But because of him seeing his struggle and not understanding the different self-care practices and how to implement them into his life, he was stubborn. Come on, most Mexicans are. Us Latinos, we are. So I took the R and then just spend the question, "Are you well?" Because as nurses, we're so used to asking everyone else, "Are you good, sis? Do you need something? Well, how about you? Are you well? Are you taking care of yourself?" And that's really
I love the well. Like, A, it's proper English. I'm good. No, I'm well. But also it's like it's empowering, it's encompassing, it's very deep. Like, wellness is, a very holistic approach.
Yes, ma'am. Definitely. So I'm super excited to start this nurse wellness initiative and just get it up and running. So yeah, if anyone wants to join, if anybody wants to find out more, you can definitely check out my new site is up, areyouwell.com. You can also find me on Facebook and Instagram and LinkedIn, of course. Definitely. Yeah, I'm super excited.
Yeah, I think that so one of the best parts about Cortex for me, right, is the largest site of neuronal integration in the brain. So it's a connector between everything. So I am big about who can I find that's out there doing something for the nurses, and how can I bridge that gap? So as I go around to different facilities and different places, the best part about COVID, I think, has been that people can realize that we can do so much digitally.
Mm.
Um, so it's really neat. You could have nurses sign up from all over for your program and just get, that personality that really vibes with them and is able to really get in. And I think too, for Hispanic nurses, we have different challenges. Our bodies are made differently and our metabolism are different, our diets are different. So
Our
like
minds.
our minds are different. Like, so understanding someone culturally, religion and faith is really important in our communities, and just being able to have someone to, and for me this year, it's been really traumatic because like the majority of patients I've had with COVID were Spanish speaking.
Yes.
And I'm one
Oh,
of the only nurses sometimes that speak Spanish. So it was a lot of like translating prior to intubation, rapid intubations, and being like, does anybody speak Spanish? And you're like, oh, I do.
so I have to have this conversation, y'all.
I've done
Y'all
this
get the
conversation again
translator.
and again and again. And it's
Girl,
like,
I translator. Go get the translator because I can't.
and some places don't have them. Like when we were really bad in the pandemic, they weren't allowed in the unit. So I had to make a choice
See,
between.
that's wrong. That's wrong. That's
So they
so
were not allowed in the unit. And how am I supposed to get the guy on BiPAP to use a phone? Okay. Yeah, that's the last place I worked. They weren't allowed in at
inhumane.
all.
That's crazy.
Yep, they weren't allowed in, and they would use a phone or an iPad. But when you're on BiPAP, you can't understand what someone's saying. And like,
Oh,
it,
like a physical translator. I got
yeah,
you.
you
I'm
could.
thinking like the.
No, but
That's
you
all we had too.
but think about when you're really sick and you're about to intubate somebody, they don't know. Like they can't hear that. And like so I oftentimes made the decision to put my mask on, go back in the room and translate.
Yeah.
And when the pandemic first started, where I was, most of the patients were Hispanic. Like I could walk down a 30-bed unit and every single last name was Hispanic. And literally I was probably the only nurse on 3 floors that spoke Spanish, and they were just intubating rapidly, and it was like me and one other doctor I remember spoke Spanish, and we were just like go in the break room and cry because it was like we might have 8, 9, 10 intubations in one shift on that unit alone. And because they had a really good system, so they would upgrade them and put them in the negative pressure room, intubate them, let them sit for an hour, open the negative pressure room, and then bring them out. And that room was always open for intubation, but they were constantly being intubated. So it was like, and that was rare. That I think it was like maybe a week that the room was like really open, and then after that it was just like crash intubation everywhere. But it was hard because it was like I was explaining to sometimes these young
Yeah,
patients.
very
I
young.
remember I had one patient with Down syndrome, and she was like maybe 19,
No.
Hispanic. But because of the Down syndrome, she was overweight, so COVID really loved her, and she was awake the entire time, and she would just cry, and then she would sing, and she would say thank you, and like I would put like Selena song when I go in to give her a bath, and she would cry, and like she would color. She'd sit up in the chair, intubate it, and color with me, and we would watch Dora, and like I mean, everyone on the unit just fell in love with her, and we ended up wheeling her out of there one day. We took really good care of her,
Oh my God, amazing.
but I will never forget her. Like I used to draw like I used to draw cartoon animals on the door, and I'm like, I don't know how peds nurses do it. Like I don't do peds. And to me,
Yeah.
like, with her cognitive disabilities, and she was pretty much a peds patient, and she would just cry, and I would stand in there for hours and hold her hand because I was like, how do I leave her alone? Because her family couldn't be with
Yeah,
her.
that's what I was gonna say. Her family couldn't be there. I don't know,
They
man.
didn't understand what's happening, and then because of the sedation, they wanted to keep her light, and because of her mental issues and everything, like it was really hard. And like we all love that girl. Like
I'm so glad y'all did the best care and she's moved on. That's
it was all travelers on our unit. Like the whole unit was travelers. It's usually a closed unit. It was just a burn unit. And because of COVID, like first when we first got there, we floated through all like 8 ICUs. And they were all full of COVID. Even the CV ICU where it was supposed to be clean got filled up. And then by like week 2 of the surge, we were up on the burn unit, opened the burn unit, and there was like maybe 2 burn nurses that were on there all the time because they were ICU, so severe burns. And the rest of them were step down nurses. So they would come over and help us. So I'd have like 4 ICU patients and 1 step down nurse.
Yeah, yeah.
But
The
she
team
can't
nursing.
hers, and so then it ended up they fixed it. I was only like 2 days like that, and then the rest of the time I was like 2 to 3.
They
But
were real ICU patients too.
they were oh yeah, they were prone, ECMO, like we were cannulating ECMO. Girl, it was crazy. And I'm telling you, and they pulled out all the stops. Like it was full court press for everybody. And at the peak, we had 250 intubated patients.
Wow.
So ICU was like, there were telemetry floors that were turned into ICUs.
Wow.
And the tele nurses were taking care of ICU patients. And we gave them like a crash course in ICU. Like they come float with us. And like there were some that were awesome. Like they were ready. Like they were like, I wanted to start ICU when I was a new nurse. Like this is my chance, and they really ate it up. But then there were these like salty med surge nurses who were like very good at what they do and very good at taking care of 5 patients. And they were terrible. Like they were shaking when they were going in the room. Like they just couldn't, like the drips and the ECMO and the dialysis, they were just like, what do I do? I don't even know how to touch this patient. And I just felt so bad. I was like, this is not,
But
this
we need you.
I was like, we need you. I feel bad. Like the one, I just had to run and get my meds, and I literally did patient care by myself because I could tell she was like terrified to go in the room.
Girl, and then just imagine taking care of, like how you said, all of them Hispanic. There's no like good anyway. Like I don't know how.
And like people were dying, and their families were like, I just got so sick of like holding the iPad and being like, okay, this is like it. Or like having to code somebody where someone else is dying and then no one's in the room. Like that probably is the worst thing for the whole pandemic for me, was watching people die by themselves. Like knowing there was no one there with them.
That's heartbreaking.
And there's some facilities that are like really working hard to make sure that doesn't happen, even if it's like sitters or somebody sitting with the patient. So I've seen some of innovation like that. But I mean, when the pandemic first hit, we were slammed. It was like, how do we know what to do? So
Such a hard time
I
that
think,
we've
like,
been through.
now is the chance to heal. And I think it's really where people like you and I are going to step up and be like, we're a resource. We're here for you. So Cortex, actually, we have Patrick McGrady, who is a experienced ICU nurse, and he's now a nurse manager, but he's actually managing our calendar of peer-to-peer drop-ins. So we'd love to include you as a coach, and you could come in and just take one of the days or whatever, whenever you're available. We'll give you a time, and you can drop in and just chat with you and get to know you. You can promote your your wellness program there, but also like just an opportunity to like talk to these nurses and really
And you're not alone.
you're not alone. Like we're here. And I feel like that a lot of people are like, oh, well, you haven't been at the bedside, or you haven't done this, or you haven't done that. I don't care. Sometimes I talk to most seasoned nurses and they have the best advice. So I really encourage nurses to kind of like, that mentality, kind of eat your young kind of thing. Oh, well, you're not here, you're not salty. Like I haven't been at the bedside since like December, and like now it's starting to eat at me. Like I'm starting to be like, I should be back. I should be back. Like this is getting worse. Like I want to go to Texas. I want to help, but I realize that I can reach more people doing this and being a healed, a resilient nurse. Like they need someone that's gone through it and survived to be like, okay, I'm coming back for you. It's like Harriet Tubman. It's like the Underground Nursing Railroad.
Yes! Come on with the Harriet Tubman.
like we're here, we're coming back for you. Look for the stars, and we can outrun.
Look out for the young ones for sure. I definitely agree. I mean, I'm still young in the game. I've been a nurse for 8 years, but I feel like I still
We're old now because everybody's leaving. I used to look around. I've been a nurse for 10 years, and I still look around. I'm like, where's the adult? Like, I need somebody else. And I'm like, I look around. I'm like, fuck, I am that person. Like,
Oh, you're the one, sis. You're the one that's gonna be
like,
leading this whole thing. Like, oh
shit.
yeah, that's me.
Like, okay, so I'm gonna go get the crash cart. I'm gonna go get this stuff, like, because I'm that person now. I'm like, oh
That's
my
you.
God. Then the resident walks over and he's like 12, and I'm like, oh God. Like, here we go. I was like, everybody just be prepared.
That's all you can do. That's all you can do. I love it. I love it.
But I love what you're doing. So, like if I was a nurse and I signed up for your program, kind of walk me through like what I would get. Like what
Yes. So there's two options you can do. Just like if you need monthly check-ins, just like here and there, we do a one-on-one, and then we strategize. Like I said, it's a collaboration, and we hit all those points: the mindset, the self-care activities, the spiritual growth, the nutrition, and creating a movement program. We can do those one-on-one, an hour session here and there if you need it, every other month, depending on your nurse lifestyle. And then I do have a 3-month program where we walk through the tiers, the 5 tiers together. And each month we're breaking it down and we're creating a week by week plan for you to help you, snap back, to get back to that recovery mode, to really build those healthier habits that are going to sustain you and ground you and remind you of your why. Why did you get into this nursing thing at all? And that way you can create that clarity, that space you need to move forward. First, it starts within us. And I do that, together with you in a 3-month program or the monthly program, depending on you. I'm also working on an email, subscription as well, coming up soon. So definitely lots of ways to, get started in this wellness initiative.
I love it. I love it. And you're doing like some Instagram lives and stuff now, right? You do like
Yes.
Wellness Wednesday.
Yes.
Yeah, she did some like workout. I was like, oh shoot, I'm not dressed for this. I was like, I have to get some. I gotta get some.
Movement that is straight to the point, effective. We can, find either what you like, if you like to cycle, if you like to walk outdoors, or we can create your program together, like step by step. Just I'm flexible. I am a personal trainer. I love movements, getting creative with that for sure. So definitely catch me on Instagram. I'm doing the lives. I'm also having other, wellness advocates. And Melissa, I would love to have you on, my show so we can have your story on there. It's amazing.
Excited.
Yeah,
I love it. And I'm also, guys, if you can go to our website at cortexenergy.org, and you can go to the nursing side of the site, because now we're integrating for the military. So if you go to the nursing side of the site, you can scroll at the top, it'll say free resources for nurses. And under there, there'll be a link to Fallon's website and a little bio about her. And it'll be on there so you guys can get to her also, in case you forget. But what is your Instagram handle?
So it's R_you, spell out the word you well. So that's how it's spelled on everything. For my website, it's R, the letter R, YOU, well. And you can find me on Instagram under that handle. You can find me on Facebook, and of course LinkedIn. I'm Fallon Lopez. And yeah, lots of amazing, great things coming up. So excited.
I love it. I'm so happy you could join. And, I'm really, on behalf of the nurses out there, thank you so much, and keep doing what you're doing. And I know entrepreneurship is so hard, and it's like exhausting sometimes. And you're like, I'm doing all this work for what? But it'll pay off, and just keep, when you're in alignment with your purpose, you'll find the things and the people that come your way. And I'm excited to be starting to send some nurses over to you.
Oh my gosh, thank you. So encouraging.
All right. Well, we will talk again soon. And you guys make sure you check out, Are You Well on Instagram. She's on LinkedIn. She's on Facebook. She's everywhere that nurses need to start being. We should record some TikToks. I feel like next time I'm in Texas, we're going to hang out. And by the way, Texas, really thank you for lifting that mask ban. And now we're going to need to go down there, all of us travelers that have been taking a break in like 2 weeks. So
Oh no.
I'm just like, my heart is out there. I'm praying for all these nurses. That in itself, like the definition of moral distress is the inability to treat your patient or to do what needs to be done due to resource scarcity. And I really think that an instance like that, hearing that on the news after being through a pandemic, like, and
All
if
the
you're a Texan, like that is a significant amount of moral distress that like no one's prepared for. And I do feel like President Biden kind of came out and was like, that was Neanderthal. Like, why would you do something like that? So it was nice to hear his support. I know it's like he's just a random person, but it was nice, because he kind of represents our country as a whole.
yeah.
And then I can remember back in the pandemic, contrary to that, where, they were talking about everything going down and President Trump was saying, some kind of negative things about us at some points. And so, that did add to the moral distress, and frequent moral distress over time leads to moral injury. So in order to stop it, we really need to be talking about it and addressing it. And if you're a nurse leader out there, make sure you're saying something like, this is an instance for moral distress. Call it what it is, call it out. Be like, how is everybody feeling after the mask ban was lifted? Like, how are you guys feeling? And invite that space to heal. And then look on our website for resources like Fallon for your nurses. Look for resources that we have out there to really help the nurses just get through this time and to heal on a whole basis. Like she talks about her 5 different tiers. To have them heal all different levels is the most important part. So thank you so much for what you're doing, and keep doing it. And we're going to do some awesome things together. So I look forward to hearing from you soon, and we'll record a live on Instagram because I like it.
Yes. I got to get you on. Thank you, Melissa, for those kind words. Yes, we need it during this time, even though Texas is a mess. Our nurses will get through.
They will. We're resilient. We are resilient. So it'll get us through until the system changes happen. So, all right, girlfriend, we'll chat again soon. You take care. Sending you tons of light and love.
Thank you, ma'am. Bye-bye.
Bye.